is awesome. And I will be keeping time. So, Rob Christeson, humor from a champ.
You got the handout right there. It says Darren LaCroix, those two pages.
Thank you.
Many of you joined Toastmasters or thinking of joining Toastmasters for different reasons, mostly around speaking, but they may or may not have, have very specific goals. When I joined Toastmasters, I had experience speaking, like we spoke about a little bit earlier, in the military, but I wanted to work on some things that I wasn't good at. And I think that's why we're all here. Hopefully all of you have things that you're wanting to work on and become better at. For me, one of those things was humor. Even though I have the ability to point out funny things and make them kind of humorous, telling jokes or inserting humor into my presentations was not one of my skills. A couple of weeks ago, I attended the International Convention for Toastmasters up in Connecticut, and last week I gave a presentation on storytelling. That was as told to me from Craig Valentine, one of the world champions in public speaking. Today, you're going to learn a little bit about humor and how to inject humor into your speaking. And this comes from Darren LaCroix, another world champion in public speaking from 2001. I've given you as a handout a snapshot off of his website. And there's a lot of good free materials out there, and there's some things that he sells as well. I would recommend looking through some of the free stuff first and seeing what you think of it before you invest any money. But his materials are outstanding. I've purchased a couple myself, and I've really enjoyed them so far. But I'm going to talk to you about one of the specific methods that he told us about during the Champ Camp up in Connecticut. The second handout I gave you is titled One Method to Inject Humor in Your Presentation. And this was given to us in a pretty brief period of time, because it's fairly easy to use. It just takes a little bit of work. And what you do is you find two things that may not necessarily be related, and you find things out about them that are related. On my example here, you see I have, right in the middle of the page, a Toastmaster and IT professional. And I've begun a list on each side. And on that list, I come up with some things that are commonly thought of, or that I think of. They could be stereotypical or not, about each of the categories. And you see in Toastmaster, I've written down speaker, talkative, presentations, meetings, contests, manuals. And we could definitely go on farther through that and come up with 50 things or 100 things that people think about Toastmasters, and we think about Toastmasters or know about it. On the IT professional side, you think about help desk, tech support. Sometimes you think about India. You call tech support and ask who you talk to, is someone in another country. Mouse control. Give me the mouse, I'll do it myself. How many times has an IT guy done that to you? Geek Squad, laptop, and again, I can make a really long list there. In fact, at the bottom there I mentioned, don't stop too soon. One of the things Darren told us is that his best stuff comes after he's going through about 3 pages on the list. And near the bottom is where he's really thought of some of his best stuff. When you look at your list, find ways to relate things that may not be related on their own. You see I drew circles around speaker and tech support. Down at the bottom, I have one of the jokes that comes from this, and these aren't the best in the world. These are ones just for examples. But I'm a speaker who's also an IT guy, which means that I can spend hours telling you about my experience with tech support. But you can definitely come up with some better stuff than that. That was a 1.0 draft humor there. I even came up with another one. I thought about categories of being an Air Force retiree, and the fact that I live in Kansas. And when I list those things out, a couple things that I came up with was that I traveled the world quite a bit, and now that I live in Kansas, it's not quite the same as maybe living outside of Venice, Italy, or Tokyo, Japan, or anywhere like that. So my joke there was, I'm retired from the Air Force and I live in Kansas, which means I've traveled the world and I'm done living in interesting places. That one at least got a little chuckle. It's not about getting a bellyache laugh. It's just about having people think, oh, that was kind of amusing. Maybe you get a little laugh out of it. We're not here to tell jokes. throughout our presentations, but sometimes having those at the right place in your presentation can enhance it. And when it's self-deprecating, that's best. When it's jokes about yourself and you're not picking on other people, those are the best ones to use. But you may know your audience, and you can find ways to pick on your audience a little bit. And a Kansas audience might find that one amusing, or they might groan. So I need to be careful. Since we're all folks that have lived in different places, we can get that joke a little easier. But sometimes some folks may not appreciate it. And I thought about some stereotypes. There were some examples in our camp that a couple of folks mentioned, and I thought, wow, I can't believe you said that. But when you're thinking through this, this is just you doing this. There are some things, and I was going to mention one that can be turned around. There are no women here, and I was hoping that a couple of would be here. There's a stereotype about women drivers that some guys have that women aren't as good as men, right? Well, there's facts behind that women's insurance rates are lower because they have fewer accidents, they're safer drivers. So if you were putting together your list and you maybe were thinking about something about women or something about drivers, you might find a way to use that stereotype to turn it around and make a joke about the fact that actually women are safer drivers than men. So don't discount those as you work your way down the list, because otherwise you may find yourself missing some really good humor. And there are some other stereotypes that were used. Darren mentioned about humor and Native Americans, because our convention was at a casino that was on a reservation. And for humor, you had things like joke, punchline, Seinfeld, pie, Jerry Lewis, straight man, 2-drink minimum. For Native Americans, he mentioned Foxwoods, which is the name of the place we were at. TPs, how, Firewater, Custer, Geronimo, things like that. Some of those things are a little bit stereotypical, like how. I mean, nobody, Native Americans don't walk around just saying how. It's from old movie, right? But Firewater, he came up with a joke about doing a comedy act at Foxwoods and requiring a 2 Firewater minimum. And it was better when he told it. But it's things like that that you wouldn't necessarily relate on your own until you work them down a list, like in this example. This opportunity that I got to hear from these champs was just fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot from all of them. And I hope that I've been able to pass on a little bit of the information to you that I received there. With this handout, you've got a quick template to help you put together some simple humor that you can add into your speech. It's nothing elaborate, but it could fit in certain presentations. You've learned today how to do that. I've given you a couple of examples, and I've given it to you on paper. So I hope that you've enjoyed this, and you'll use this to add more humor into your presentations. Mr. Toastmaster.
Is that the fans doing? Yeah. Well done. Thank you very much. That reminds me of a speech I heard recently at the name of the club is escaping right. Yes, Semi-Pro Club. It's a select club in town. Arlen Busenitz gave a really interesting speech about injecting different tactics to get humor into your speeches. So it was really good. Thank you very much, Toastmaster Christeson.